Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome to the June 2023 energy report. I decided to show up and do it on Instagram Live because I have not been active on my Instagram for the last month or so, really. So I thought I'd show up and give you all some love and give my Instagram some love. And technically, this is going to be an energy report for the month of thank you for joining, for the months of May and June, because I don't know if any of you noticed or even cared. Probably not, honestly, but I didn't do an energy report for the month of May, and that wasn't intentional. I had some really intense psychic attack experiences at the beginning of the month, just super knocked me out and wiped me out. And every time throughout the month that I went to record the energy report, I kept telling myself, better late than never, Amy, better late than never. It just felt like such a hard no in my energy field, no, it was next level resistance. And so the conclusion that I came to is it just wasn't, it wasn't time. For whatever reason, that energy did not want to be spoken about until the month was over. So here we are. Apparently I have the green light to talk about it now. So we're just going to summarize May as it pertains to June, rather than we've all lived through the damn month. We don't need a full playback, but they do kind of go hand in hand, because the card for the month of May that I pulled in my year ahead tarot and Akashic reading was the Page of Cups. And I always use the Moonchild Tarot by Danielle Noel. I will tag her when I post this because she's amazing. It's an amazing deck. She's an amazing artist. She has a bunch of beautiful oracle decks as well. But as you can see depicted on this card, it is a figure that is walking into a portal. And I remember the way I interpreted it in the context of the entire year ahead. I'm not going to go back into that. You can watch it. It's on YouTube if you want to. And that felt true, which means basically the interpretation was we're being invited in May in particular, but it's not like the energies follow a fucking calendar, right? We're the ones that follow a calendar. That's why I'm here talking to you on June 1st. It's all a fabrication of the human mind and the false matrix overlords. But the energies that we have just passed through and continue to, be sort of emanating and rippling through our fields is an invitation. It's like an invitation and an initiation and possibly a requirement that we start to tune into our own inner compass in a very serious way. Meaning we're no longer abdicating our personal responsibility to the idea of a roadmap that somebody else has made the journey and they're giving you the map and that's the exact way to get there. Or we're no longer abdicating our power to experts or gurus or online figures or whatever, whoever, our parents, our boss, our third grade teacher that is still, her voice still echoes in our head, all that stuff, right? In May, we were really initiated. I feel like for a lot of us, our spirit guides were out of the nest you go now, baby bird. It is time for you to start to hone into your own intuition and your own internal compass, your own truth, and follow that. And it doesn't mean that we even have to denounce all of the online gurus or figures, all of the experts, or anything like that. But it's it was a point of maturity that we have been guided to. It's time. It's time for us to really accept that nobody has the truth. Nobody has the truth. None of us, not a single one of us holds the whole entire truth. And in fact, I think it has to be that way because I think that if any single one of us held every single piece of the truth, that person would be way too easy of a target, way too vulnerable to being hijacked and then spreading disinformation accidentally. So none of us carries the whole truth, no matter who you're looking to as a beacon of authority on any given topic. You carry as much truth within you as anybody else. It may be very deeply buried within you under layers and layers of trauma and programming and just kind of the nonsense that we create as we are asleep within the dream, you know, like, and as we really deeply identify with ourselves as humans and all of our stories and our micro dramas and all that kind of stuff. Your truth may be deeply buried under those layers, but you still have as much of that truth within you as anybody else does. And so May was really like, it's time to learn how to tune into that truth and uphold that as your beacon, your personal beacon. You know, when you need to make a decision in your life or you need to pick a direction to move, you're not outsourcing and asking umpteen billion other people. If you're anything like me, I had this pattern for a long time. It doesn't happen anymore, but I used to always ask my mom. I would, like, if I was trying to make a decision, I would go to my mom. And I knew that my mom, like, we had this weird dynamic going on at the time where I knew she was going to say the exact fucking thing that made me the most angry. Like, whatever it was, like, she would just be in the opposite of what I wanted. And really it was because I was outsourcing my own authority to her, like as if she had any kind of authority over me, her like adult child, you know, like I'm in charge of my own life. We're kind of being guided there collectively, but on an individual basis, but also like definitely on a collective basis, right? With all the, nobody needs me to summarize the chicanery of the last 3 years, but it's still ongoing, and there are still people that are getting up to speed and really realizing like, oh my God, the people that we have believed who are in positions of like, you know, power and authority and experts and blah, 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 those people are not necessarily the people that we want to be taking advice from and guidance from, because they don't necessarily have our best interest at heart. And furthermore, whether they do or they don't, who cares? If the most like well-meaning expert gives you a piece of information and for you in your heart, it doesn't resonate, and you know inside of yourself that it's not actually for you, then it doesn't matter how well-meaning that person is. You need to defer to that authority that you feel within yourself. So that was the initial interpretation I got at the beginning of the year when I pulled that card in the first place for the month of May. But as we moved through the energies of the month and I knew what was coming up in June, I mean, I knew what card I had pulled for June, and I started to feel into these together. The card that I pulled for June is the Universe card. So to me, the two of them together really look like basically we're walking through a portal into a whole entire other realm of consciousness. And that also brings with it like a major completion of energy cycles of consciousness. So let me see. Of course, I tuned in before I pressed start, and I haven't gone live for a while. So now I'm like all mentally scattered. Let me zero in on my own interpretation again. So May was like stepping through a portal into the energy that we are going to be experiencing in June, and then of course onward. So May was like the portal, almost like a void space, like I don't know, going like you're like water spinning and going down the drain, and you finally go down the drain, and what's on the other side of the drain is what we are going to experience in June. The Universe card is the deck author and illustrator, the deck creator's reimagining of what is traditionally the World card. So she just renamed it the Universe, but it has the exact same theme, the exact same position, and it is the final card in the major arcana of the tarot. So if you are a tarot person, then just bear with me through this explanation for everybody who is not a tarot person. But the tarot deck is divided into two principal sections, the major arcana and the minor arcana. The major arcana are these cards that don't fall under any suit. The minor arcana is divided into 4 suits similar to playing cards. So those are traditionally the pentacles, the cups, the wands, and the swords. The major arcana cards don't belong to any suit. They are separate from any suit. And they are also like big time, heavy hitting energies, like really big, very significant themes. Whereas the minor arcana is like all the sort of like filler things in between, right? Because anybody's life, no matter how dramatic it is, it's not going to be made up, comprised of like one gigantic theme after another. There's going to be a little bit of space in between the big themes for it to play out in the nitty-gritty of our everyday lives. So the minor arcana represents that nitty-gritty of our everyday lives. The major arcana represents the big themes, and the universe card or the world card in traditional decks is the completion of the whole entire major arcana. So it's a pretty big fucking deal is what I'm trying to say. It's a pretty big deal. I remember when I pulled this at the beginning of the year and I was like, whoa, what is going to happen in June? And back when I recorded this year ahead reading in January, and it was all speculation, right? And it always is. I was feeling into it and I was like, I think a lot of us are going to get a glimpse beyond the veil. But I was even afraid to claim that because first of all, what if we don't? Like that, that's always, I'm sure if any of you read the tarot or do any kind of readings, that's always sort of a fear or like a thought that we have is like, what if I'm wrong? What if we don't? What if June is the most mundane month ever and nobody gets a glimpse beyond fucking anything? And I'm totally wrong. But it's interesting because I actually personally got my like really real glimpse beyond the veil back in March. And then I've been speaking to some other people that have been getting glimpses beyond the veil, like really significant ones for like in the last couple months as well. And I'm sure people have been getting it before that. So now that we're here in June, what it actually feels like to me is that we have passed through a drain. It's like we've passed through an event horizon. It's almost like, I think a drain or a waterfall is the best analogy. Like our consciousness and the energy of this grand cycle that we are all part of, whether we want to cooperate with it or not, it is moving in a direction and we really do not have any say over that at all. And it has led us to a point where we have, let's just take the analogy of the drain, where like we've kind of been cycling around for the last 3 years, and the cycles have been tightening and becoming shorter and shorter as we approach the actual drain. I feel that we have passed through the drain. Like there is a point of no return that occurred somewhere probably in this past quarter, but like for realsies happened in May. I'm sure it plays out differently for all of us in our individual lives. Side note, one thing that I have observed is that it's becoming harder and harder to describe like big overarching collective themes playing out because I don't think they're playing out anymore. I think that, for example, like with the virus that everybody lost their mind over starting in 2020, that was maybe that year was the last year, maybe 2021, of the big collective themes. We used to have big collective themes around wars or 9/11 or like really big events that impacted everybody. And I feel like those are not happening as much anymore, but all of the things that are happening are still packing a very significant punch. But it's almost like the themes are becoming more localized to particular communities, whether they're like geographically based communities, like an area in the world, or collective groups of consciousness, collective groups of people that are connected through the internet or maybe the telepathic networks. So anyway, all that is to say that I feel like we passed through this portal in May, and here we are in June on the other side, and it's June 1st, so, we are going to be experiencing the other side. And on one hand, it's going to look very mundane. I don't imagine that I am just magically going to transcend this dimension of reality in the month of June completely, where it just fades away and I completely dock my consciousness into a whole new timeline or a whole new reality, whatever. And just leave all this behind. Like, what I'm saying is I don't think that the rapture is happening or the ascension is happening, like in its completion in this month. I'm not trying to make any crazy claims like that, or wild claims is more what I mean. But I feel that it's going to become very apparent to us, each of us individually, as well as collectively through the month of June, that there is no going back. And it even feels weird to try and articulate this because, it probably sounds like, well, duh, Amy, fucking obviously there's no going back. There's been no going back for a long time. Like, since at least 2020, there's been no going back. And that's true. But every time we pass one of these thresholds where it feels like there's no going back, that is a real threshold. This one feels like a really big one, though. A really big one. I know that today, supposedly, I don't know, I'm not abreast with the news or anything like that, so maybe they've already ruled on it, maybe it's been resolved. But just as an example, I know that there was a question about like the necessity to raise the debt ceiling in the US so that basically the American economy, and by extension the entire global economy, doesn't completely come crashing down. And June 1st was like the decision day. Maybe the decision has already been made and this is all a moot point. I don't know. But it's an example of what I mean. Like, that would be a big collective theme, and maybe it's going to play out as a big collective theme, but I really don't think it has to. But that would be an example of a point of no return. But it can be a point of no return in your individual life, where in June, you're like, it's like Dorothy in like landing in Munchkin Land in Oz and being like, I'm not in Kansas anymore. This is not the world. This is not the reality. This is not the dimension that I used to occupy. It's also feeling really hard for me lately to give these like broader collective energy reports because I'm not sure where everybody's at, and I don't want to speak in a way that makes anybody feel left out. But the place that my mind naturally wants to go to interpret all this stuff is for everybody who has ever been feeling over the last however many years, but certainly I'm sure in an amplified way at any point in the last 3 years. I'm really talking to anybody who's been feeling like maybe you're actually an alien, or maybe you're actually an angelic or a dragon, or you're just becoming aware that you have a multidimensional consciousness that is in no way restricted to this reality that we're in right now. It would be like June being the month where if you identify with that, if you resonate with it, if you're like, yeah, I've been kind of thinking I'm a starseed, I'm a galactic, I'm an alien, I'm an angelic, I'm a dragon. I don't know what I am, but I know that I can travel interdimensionally. June would be the month where the matrix starts to show that to you, reflect it to you. And you can't deny your power anymore. You can't deny that you are literally the one that is holding this whole, like, your own personal reality stream. You're the one that's holding it in place. I still feel like the best analogy ever is like being in a deep sleep sort of dream where you don't realize it's a dream, versus becoming lucid within the dream, where you wake up inside the dream, but you're still dreaming, but you're like, oh, this is a dream. And you start to figure out how to move around within the dream and like manipulate the dream, not in a negative way, but like to mold the dream field so that it reflects to you, like, so you realize like, oh, I am the creator and I am the created. I am created and I am creating. I am the dreamer and I'm the character within the dream. You know, it's like that. I personally have been getting so many insights into what interdimensional travel even is. I started getting them last year, but I just did not have the prerequisite understanding to be able to digest it or implement it at all. Like last year, I still felt way too human. This month, I'd say that for a lot of us, it's probably going to feel like a threshold where we're just like, I'm not really a human in the way that I believed in the sense of what I thought a human was, if that makes sense. So again, I'm not suggesting that we're like, oh my God, it's gonna be like, what's that movie? Fuck. Men in Black, where we just rip off our Edgar suits and we're like these, aliens underneath, or any kind of suit at all whatsoever. I don't think it's going to play out like that. Like I believe it's still going to feel very mundane and very grounded, but this like bizarre lucid awareness that this is all a holographic construct for real. Not just a conceptual awareness, but like an embodied, integrated awareness where manifestation happens so quickly that you are like, okay, yep, I'm creating all this. Perfect example. Yesterday I was doing module 5 of the New Earth Lightcodes of Money and Wealth. And I was using an example of like, basically I was saying that often when we quantum leap, the first sign that we are quantum leaping is not the thing that we want. So in the case of like money and wealth, it's not like all of a sudden a whole bunch of money coming into our lives. Usually the first sign that we're quantum leaping is some big shakeup, some like really significant change that seems totally unrelated. And I used a bunch of examples, and the one I settled on was like getting into a car accident where you're okay. Maybe this was just the analogy I was using. You're okay, but the vehicle is totaled and it's a really big shakeup in your life, right? That's the first sort of like evidence that you're quantum leaping, often. Not a car wreck specifically, but something of that sort of magnitude. Anyway, I was using that analogy and I was kind of triggering myself because I got into it was just a little car wreck, but it was still like enough to be a fucking pain in the ass for months. It's still, our van just went in today to finally get body work done. But I got into a little car wreck in January, and it was stressful because it totally just threw me off course. I had all this, all that administrative crap to deal with, like insurance stuff and license stuff and like tickets and all that kind of crap. Anyway, so as I'm using this analogy yesterday, I'm triggering myself. And I was like, whoa, I have some shit I need to work through. Otherwise, I'm going to manifest this into my life again because like it's alive. I can feel the emotional charge around it. I have to process this. Not 2 hours later, I went to the friggin' grocery store and witnessed in the parking lot a car wreck of the same, like a very similar kind that I had been in. It was wild to be like, I literally manifested that. Now, I'm not saying that I manifested shitty things into somebody else's life. I'm saying in my own hologram, I manifested my like meeting point with that event, which may or may not have happened, whether I was there or not. But I manifested that experience for myself because it is alive in my energy field and I am a conscious creator. So June really feels like that to me, where we're just going to be having these experiences that leave us in a place of like such profound certainty that we are manifesting all of this, that this is a dream, that we we are able to wake up within the dream, and that we are also not restricted to the dream. That there is like, I mean, I don't know, I'm probably gonna have to make a course about interdimensional travel, because I don't know how I could ever succinctly summarize it into like one video. But I'm realizing and experiencing personally that it's very possible. No ships are required, like ships the way that we think of ships. At least not for a lot of it, at least not for that which I experience. And I feel like basically, I'm sorry, I'm so all over the place today, but basically it feels like June is like, okay, your dormancy period where you were like the undercover human is fully complete now. It's fully complete. You now have to get on with the work of disidentifying as a human, while at the same time being in a human body and therefore having human experiences. But it's like, you can't play into it anymore. You can't indulge it. So you still have to process it as it happens. But say, for example, let's say you've had this story about yourself that you've been nursing for a really long time, okay? Like a story like, I don't know, what's it like? People always fuck me over. I can't trust people. I can't get close to people because they always either leave me or they take advantage of me or whatever. Say you've had that story going for a long time in your life. And it's a valid story insofar as you've had multiple experiences to substantiate that story. Right? And it probably happened like initially, like you feel like, I wasn't trying to create those experiences. They just happened and all that stuff. The energy of June to me feels like coming into a new level of consciousness wherein you realize that that story like held truth insofar as you had experiences that, as I said, substantiated it. But it is completely optional and it is not required to carry it forward. And you almost feel kind of silly every time your brain tries to indulge it, but it does still try to indulge it because it's such a deeply ingrained habit, right? Like we have to differentiate between, I don't want anybody to think that what I'm saying is like bolt of lightning. You're going to feel like a fucking alien and you're going to be like, I'm an Arcturian. I'm not even human anymore. And, end of all the stories. No, we have however many years you've been alive of like a habit of believing these certain things about ourselves and identifying with the human experience. And so that habit is going to cause us to, go there again and try to keep it alive. But every time we do, it's just going to feel like kind of flat. Or I don't know, another drama that I can use as an example, because I had this one. Before I met Alex, it was like, oh, woe is me. I always get baited and switched. Like these guys come in saying all the right things and then they just become lazy and they waste my time and like boo hoo hoo, whatever. Like, I had this whole story going. If I still have that story going now, the energy I feel around June is like, I'm not even going to get the satisfaction anymore of, like, the only reason we repeat those stories is because we get a little dopamine hit. Basically, there are parasites living in our astral field, in our thoughts, and we definitely have parasites living in our bodies and our guts, and you got to believe they are all related, all of them. It's dark energies. They are representations of dark energy fields, dark consciousness, which is essentially like an ego that does not want to let go of itself, its concept of self, and it will fucking fight tooth or nail to the bitter, bitter, bitter end to hold on to what it perceives that it is, who it perceives that it is. That's what all dark consciousness is. It doesn't matter if it's reptilian or whatever, people like to talk about. It takes any form, any race, any species, any manifestation. That's what it is. It's like the deeply concentrated nexus point of an ego that refuses to let go of of itself, its concept of self. And we have all of these things living in our astral field and in our physical bodies. And those are the things that cause us to crave alcohol, to crave food, to crave sex, to crave, to milk our like little personal victim sob stories, our micro human dramas, because they like literal physical parasites in your gut interfere with your own, like they secrete chemicals that interfere with your own food cravings. So your body actually wants like very pure foods that actually are sourced directly from the earth and do not require like factory processing. But you can't feel it because your body is full of like certain funguses and parasites. All of our bodies are. I don't even care. Like people who have been raw vegan for 20 years still will do cleanses and get parasites out and like a whole bunch of old impacted, fecal matter and whatever, because we've been in such a state as a species. And so we're like craving pizza and we think like, oh, but I just love pizza. Like I can't give up pizza but it's the same when we're craving sex. It's like an astral entity that is like, just hook up with this person. Just like, it's always this thing that keeps us in a looping cycle, and it's not actually us. And what it feels like is in June, like whatever happened in May, the whole entire year, right? Like these energies don't follow a calendar, as I said. Whatever has happened in the preceding months has led us to this point where we have enough distance from those parasitic things that are still in our fields and whatever, in our bodies, in our astral field, in our thoughts, where we don't get off on the serotonin or dopamine hit that they create. So if you are craving pizza and you decide to eat the pizza and you're like, you get that feeling like you bite the pizza and you're like, oh my God, that's not actually you. That's the fucking crazy thing. That is the parasites that live in your body. That's the yeasts that live in your body that are giving you that hit. And then you feel like you think it's you because you're identifying with it, because you don't know, because we've been too close to it. Do you know what I mean? A distance has been created now. So even though the parasites are going to get the dopamine hit every time, or like release the dopamine every time we entertain our like micro drama, trauma, human stories and narratives and perspectives, we're not really going to feel the effect of that hit. Like our consciousness has raised enough that we don't really need the dopamine anymore, if that makes sense. So on one hand, we're being required to step into this new level, but on the other hand, I also feel like there is a passive portion of it too, a passive component where it's just happening. It's just fucking happening. And it's just interesting to observe it and to capitalize off of it. I don't know. I don't really like that languaging, but what's another way of putting that? Like to maximize it, to like bounce off of it, to elevate higher off of it, as we can observe, like for example, if you and your partner have been having the same argument or like looping in the same drama cycle over and over and over, it's that place where you get to where you're like, it just isn't doing anything for me anymore. And you don't even feel like you need to create an ultimatum or make them the bad guy anymore, or like whatever, you don't feel like you even need to defend your position. You're just like, I'm bored. Like I'm over it. Like I can't even really remember why I participated in maintaining this whole drama construct for so long, because it doesn't feel real. It doesn't resonate. It took me like half an hour, 35 minutes to finally get there, but that's it. What I just said, I just put my finger on it. It's like the things that felt really real before aren't really going to feel real to us from this month onward. And possibly you've already been feeling that, but I feel like it's going to be very pronounced in the month of June. The universe card is like, it's a card of completion, like a big cycle is completing itself. If this were just about moving forward in our dramas and making progress and like, you know, being able to like, you know, start moving the energy, it would be the Wheel of Fortune. But this is the universe card. This is like big themes coming to an end. So I anticipate that for a lot of us, big traumas, big dramas, things that have like basically had us by the short and curlies for a long time they're just not going to hold power over us anymore. And part of it is going to be like, we always, because this is a realm of free will, and that's one of our biggest flexes, is that we have free will. And the more consciously we use that, the more powerful we become in affecting like very, very significant change. So there is going to be a portion of it that's always going to be a choice where like you do have to choose to let these cycles end, but also they are at their natural completion point. It's another analogy would be, you know, when you're like crying about something, you're having a genuine catharsis and you're crying or you're raging or however the emotion is coming out, and you're just letting it all out. It's an ugly cry. Let's say you're at home, nobody's there. You can just be like, ah, like maximum drama. We can't cry for hours, right? We actually can't. There is a natural point where that cycle completes. And that's where we like, you see it a lot in children where they just like sort of like, you know, and that's the window where we can move forward into something else. But a lot of the time humans tend to be like, wait a minute, I was crying about something. What was I crying about? And then reactivating it all over again. So that's the point where we have choice, and we really have to flex that, is like, as we feel this cycle coming to an end, just let it end, and let ourselves move forward into something else. But also know that the energy is such that these big cycles are ending. So what it means for you individually, I anticipate is, like I said, those fucking like dynamics that have been draining you, those relationship dynamics, or a situation with like, you know, your job or whatever it is, a story that you've been telling yourself, something that has really had you by the balls for a long time, sometimes decades, it's ending. And you get to be free, and you have to choose that freedom, because you can renew your contract with that cycle if you want, if you want to carry it on for however much longer, you can. But also, like, you know, it is totally actually available to us to let it go. The other thing too that I think this is all going to mean for a lot of us is we are going to start experiencing things like random interdimensional travel, possibly random astral travel. Although, I mean, I'm not really a conscious astral traveler, but I just don't feel like that's that exciting anymore. I used to want to do it so much, and then I would self-sabotage every time it would happen. I would freak out. But now I'm aware that the astral is just the astral. It's just the fourth dimension. We're here anyway. It's just like basically dislodging from your body and being able to travel freely within the dream, but you're not leaving the dream construct. We are able to leave the dream construct. It's not even actually leaving the dream construct. We simultaneously exist in, I don't know what other English words to use other than to say like multiple dimensions within and outside of this dream construct. We have consciousness aspects that are already simultaneously there. So, you know, when we're thinking about like what kind of starseed am I, or what kind of galactic am I, or whatever, it's not a past life thing. It is that question actually means what other predominant aspects of my consciousness are simultaneously or currently accessible to me. So it's like understanding that there is a version of you that has, let's use the example of being Pleiadian, because a lot of people, like I do believe that there are a lot of people with Pleiadian aspects, counterparts here. So it would be acknowledging that there is a realm that we call Pleiadian for whatever reason, and it is a different dream construct than this one. And it is still a dream construct. And there are realms outside of the dream construct. And in that realm, you have a body that is suited, that is created for that realm. So you're not going to be taking this body to that realm because this body is suited to this realm. But your consciousness is not limited to this body. It can move to the other body. But it's like you have to get to a point where you're able to separate from this identity construct that you currently have enough that you can shift your consciousness into another version of yourself that is equally real, and sort of like dock into that body, that spacesuit. Like your consciousness is the ship. I don't know if I'm making sense. Yeah, I don't know if I'm making sense. I really want to explain it so much. English is becoming harder and harder for me to use all the time. Basically what I'm saying is I believe that we're also really going to start having a lot of very, very interesting experiences, and don't feel left out if you're not. Don't worry about it. It doesn't mean that you can't have them, and it also doesn't mean that you're not having them. It just like if we're not having these interesting experiences, it's more of a reflection that we're still very identified with being a human. And it's also a very weird thing because we are a human. Like if this is one of your avatars, basically it's like having another avatar. Like literally the original Avatar movie. It's like you have a human body, you have I can't remember what those creatures were called, but that kind of a body. You have other bodies in other dream constructs, in other realities, and you can access them. As this dream becomes thinner and more ephemeral than ever, it opens us up to be able to shift out of this reality, because we're like, the ways that we have been stuck here are through the ways that we deeply identify with being this and this reality. So when we can become flexible in that way and sort of like separate from it, then we can also connect with the other aspects of ourselves and dock into another avatar. That's probably the best way of putting it. And if you're not having those experiences, it doesn't mean anything bad about you at all whatsoever. It just means that you're still deeply identified with being a human, and the good news is that just tells you like where to focus your effort if you do want to have these kind of experiences. It's just like calling the bluff of all of the stories that you have about yourself and about this reality. They're all subjective. None of them are factual. They're valid insofar as you've had experiences that validate the beliefs and the stories that you have created, but they are totally optional. You can create a new story at any time. You can create a new belief at any time. You can create a new perception of yourself and who you really are at any time. And I feel like the universe card is just telling us that the energies are ripe for that. And we're going to be liberated. Like a lot of tethers are going to be snipped and released as the month goes on, as like cycles kind of are completed, some possibly like without our conscious cooperation. I also have been observing, like, I know a lot of people have been dying for many months, but it really seems to me that over the last couple months, there has been a lot of death, and not politically related death around people's personal health choices per se. I don't know. But like, to me, the scenarios have been seemingly unrelated to that. And I've just observed that it serves a function for all of us. Even as, you know, in my own experience, Killian's death like really snipped some very, very strong tethers that I had to my concept of self. I feel like that is also on the table for a lot of us, is just like witnessing and experiencing death that it is a loss, and there is a gift that is made available through that experience, or any of our kind of abrupt ending experiences where we get to dissolve the illusions of who we have thought that we are this whole time, the illusions, and come into greater realization of who we actually have been all along. Okay. As always, I've rambled way longer than I intended to. Once I get going, I really ramble. I just want to see a couple people commented, and I didn't want to get distracted, but I'm just going to go back and read them. Yes, Elizabeth, it is a rare surprise to catch me live here. I should go live here more often. I got to do something with my Instagram. It's been like crickets for a while. Oh, thank you, Olivia. That makes me so happy. And Love Lot Keepsake says, funny to hear this. I told my husband yesterday that when I went to the store watching everyone in line, I felt like I wasn't human, like I shouldn't be here with everybody else. It was very strange. Totally. Exactly. It's exactly what I'm talking about. Thank you for sharing your own personal, like the way that you perceive it and describe it. And Olivia, you said, so spot on. I need to stop falling into those past stories manifestations. We have to finally jump into the Christ consciousness. That is what he wants for us. I totally believe that, Olivia. I really do. Like, I really believe that. So I guess I do believe that Jesus is a real person. I keep saying I'm still up for debate personally. But I guess I do believe that Jesus is a real person. I really believe that it was never Jesus's intention to like be the only savior while we're just all these helpless little like I really believe that he came to show us how to be humans here, and we need to be those humans, and it's not by following like other people's interpretations of like how to behave. It's about, I mean, that's the lesson from May, is like you have to find that Christ consciousness inside of yourself and defer to that, not somebody else's interpretation or rules or authority or expertise. And Olivia, you said, I know you keep saying we may not feel human. What if the hidden truth of being human is exactly what we are feeling? What if Jesus' source was trying to prove human is so much more than that? Well, ultimately, that is totally what I believe too. This is why I'm not going live very much anymore, because it's so hard to, like, I don't even know how people do reels. I'm like, how the fuck? I can't even, like, I was going to do a 20-minute energy report and it's going on half an hour. No, I mean an hour. But yes, I do very much believe that being a human is like, it's not what we have thought it is. And that's what I mean when we're disidentifying with being a human. I'm just using alien as an example because a lot of people, I think, will understand what I'm trying to convey. But it's not like, I mean, I think humans are incredible. Love Luck Keepsakes, you said, yesterday was the first time I had a moment in public that I did not feel human. Very strange feeling. Wasn't grounded. Beautiful. And Metaphysical Futurist, you said, I believe that the golden age of enlightenment, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, prophesied is coming. We are shifting into it more each day. Totally, Jesus came as a teacher, not a messiah. Yeah, I could not agree more. Could not agree more. Okay. Thank you, beautiful souls, for joining and watching. I hope that this energy report served you, and I love you so much, and I will show up here again soon. I promise I won't disappear again for another month. Okay, bye.